I can see that.
Also, the Washington Post, this was triggering you to no end. I think we should run through it, even though...
Oh, this one's great. We should hit this one for sure.
Yeah, this is, Washington Post. Washington Post, let me repeat it again. Headline, Pentagon opens sweeping review of clandestine psychological operations. Wow. The phrase is in a WAPO headline. That's pretty amazing.
Washington Post reporting, and this came out a couple days ago. Washington Post, a whole spread on military online misinformation, psychological operations. It is, even just seeing the headline was a huge surprise. Now, this is a long one, Gons, and they go into a lot of stuff. I do have my highlights from before.
Okay.
And I don't know if you read the whole, read through it beforehand, but I can summarize the boring parts.
Sure, go for it.
Okay. Well, let's read the opening. The Pentagon has ordered a sweeping audit of how it conducts clandestine information warfare after major social media companies identified and took offline fake accounts suspected of being run by the U.S. military in violation of the platform's rules.
Oh, so the heroes, the social media companies are heroes. They're the spook spotters.
So Facebook... who has been taking down, fake accounts, disinformation accounts, things like this, has been taking down fake Facebook accounts run by the U.S. military. So they go into a description of the military's psychological operations program. And here's a short bit of it. Colin Kahl, the Undersecretary of Defense for Policy last week, instructed the military commands that engage in psychological operations online to provide a full accounting of their activities by next month after the White House and some federal agencies expressed mounting concerns over the Defense Department's attempted manipulation of audiences overseas, according to several defense and administration officials familiar with the matter. The takedowns in recent years by Twitter and Facebook of more than 150 bogus personas and media sites created in the United States was disclosed last month by internet researchers Graphica and the Stanford Internet Observatory. While the researchers did not attribute the sham accounts to the U.S. military, two officials... Now, that's a big point right there. Graphica and Stanford Internet Observatory, these were some of the guys involved in Russiagate, some of the institutions that were saying Russia hacked our elections and blah, 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 which turned out not to be true. But these two organizations are like the watchdogs for online misinformation. And while the researchers did not attribute the sham accounts to the U.S. military, so these institutions disclosed last month that Twitter and Facebook are taking down fake accounts and did not mention that some of those accounts are military accounts, are fake military.
Sounds like denial.
Exactly. There's like is lying by omission, which was part of their problem during the Russiagate thing. Two officials familiar with the matter said that U.S. Central Command is among those whose activities are facing scrutiny. CENTCOM! Like others interviewed for this report, they spoke on the condition of anonymity. Okay. So they go into how Twitter, Facebook, they're taking down fake accounts. They're taking down misinformation accounts. They're saving society by censoring people and deleting accounts. And, they give some of the specifics of this, but more or less what happened was it turned out they had been taking down and blocking and censoring active psychological operations accounts run by the Pentagon, whose sole reason for being there was to spread misinformation. So while, of course, telling the truth can get you in trouble just as much as lying nowadays. It was the Pentagon and the military who are also accidentally getting taken down. And this caused a whole hullabaloo. The military was mad at Facebook for taking down their PsyOps. It's this whole big thing.
Yeah, it's like a big family fight. It's like a brother and sister fighting.
Now, they do keep saying, they keep mentioning, they make sure to say that these psychological operations, they're overseas. This is overseas misinformation. And they give a couple of examples of some conspiracy theories invented by our military and then seeded into foreign countries in order to destabilize, to make it so the population doesn't trust the government. You know, exactly what they're saying Russia and China are doing to us. Weird. And then it goes into this. According to the researchers' report, the accounts taken down included a made-up Persian language media site. So these include not actual, but like news sites, not just personas, but like companies, fake media companies that shared content reposted from the US funded Voice of America. Now, Voice of America, incredibly infamous, long-standing government propaganda outlet. It was invented, I think it was before this, but played a big role in the Cuban Missile Crisis. Voice of America played a role in Vietnam. It's sort of the American propaganda radio stations that they would play, over the ocean and let Cubans listen to American propaganda, stuff like this. So known propaganda outlet. Yeah. But what they're doing is they're making fake news sites, fake social media accounts for these news sites, and then, retweeting Voice of America propaganda, things like this. Radio Free Europe is the same thing. Another, it said, was linked to a Twitter handle that in the past had claimed to operate on behalf of CENTCOM. One fake account posted an inflammatory tweet claiming that relatives of deceased Afghan refugees had reported bodies being returned from Iran with missing organs, according to the report. The tweet linked to a video that was part of an article posted by the U.S. military-affiliated website. So these are the types of things that they are spreading overseas. And I think it's interesting because you can kind of see these types of conspiracy theories floating around in the U.S. as well. And you wonder exactly why or where they're coming from or how they would know this or whatever. Just the idea of a story. Afghan refugees reported bodies returned with missing organs kind of echoes some of the kind of weirder Q conspiracy theories that would go around, organ harvesting, stuff like this. CENTCOM has not commented on whether these accounts were created by its personnel or contractors. If the organ harvesting tweet is shown to be CENTCOM's, one defense official said it would, quote, absolutely be a violation of doctrine and training practices. So they're taking their opportunity to say, well, you found us. That goes against, look how they say, not against the law, but like our doctrines. No, we would never lie about organ harvesting. What is this crazy? Independent of the report, Washington Post has learned that in 2020, Facebook disabled fictitious personas created by CENTCOM to counter disinformation spread by China, suggesting the coronavirus responsible for COVID-19 was created at a U.S. Army lab in Fort Detrick. According to officials familiar with the matter, the pseudo profiles active in Facebook groups that conversed in Arabic, Farsi, Urdu, the officials said, were used to amplify truthful information from the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention about the virus's origination in China. The use,
what a mess.
I know. So that's just a little bit of telling like what their excuses are. The U.S. government's use of ersatz social media accounts. Ersatz just means fake, though authorized by law and policy.
Smith-Mund
Modernization Act. We talk about it all the time. How the government can legally spread propaganda with fake social media accounts is authorized by law and policy has stirred controversy inside the Biden administration, with the White House pressing Pentagon to clarify. So they take a second and say, oh, Biden is totally against this. He does not like this very much. There's a quote.
He doesn't even know what's going on with that stuff.
He doesn't know what's going on. But it says this, where is it? The White House agencies such as the State Department and even some officials within the Defense Department have been concerned that the policies are too broad. Oh, the laws that allow the government to lie to people, a little too broad, allowing leeway for tactics that, even if used to spread truthful information, risk eroding U.S. credibility. Several U.S. officials said. And this is kind of what this whole thing is revolving around. They keep going back to this because they're straight up coming out and saying in the Washington Post, your military, your intelligence community are making fake accounts, spreading disinformation, spreading misinformation, spreading malinformation. And they're doing this all legally, and they're doing it constantly. And apparently enough of the people have realized this. This has become such common knowledge that that WAPO feels, free to report on it. But around this, it's orbiting this idea that, we got to stop it because then people won't trust the U.S. No kidding. Quote, our adversaries are absolutely operating in the information domain, said a second senior defense official. Quote, there are some who think we shouldn't do anything clandestine in that space. Ceding an entire domain to an adversary would be unwise, but we need stronger guardrails.
Policy guardrails.
Yeah. So
he's saying nothing, basically.
He's saying nothing. He's saying, okay, we'll make some more rules or something. Yeah,
more bureaucracy to make it look like we're doing something about it, but really we're not.
Yes. And then it goes into many examples of this. Mm-hmm. The long story short, they just straight up admit that propaganda is dispensed by the military, is dispensed by the CIA. In fact, it has this part where the CIA is mad at the military for taking their tactics. Down here it says, with the rise of Russia and China as strategic competitors, military commanders have wanted to fight back, including online. And Congress supported that. Frustrated with perceived legal obstacles to the Defense Department's ability to conduct clandestine activities in cyberspace, Congress in late 2019 passed a law affirming that the military could conduct operations in the information environment. 2019, folks. Trump was president. Congress passed a law allowing the military to spread misinformation to defend the United States and to push back against foreign disinformation aimed at undermining interests. The measure, known as Section 1631, allows the military to carry out clandestine psychological operations without crossing what the CIA has claimed as its covert authority, alleviating some of the friction that had hindered such operations previously. Alleviating the friction to their ability to do psychological operations. This is a fun quote. Combatant commanders got really excited, recalled the first defense official. Quote, they were very eager to utilize these new authorities. The defense contractors were equally eager to land lucrative classified contracts to enable clandestine influence operations. The military industrial complex contractors got involved in this. So it's not even just the military. There are military industrial complex contractors giddily celebrating their ability to get lucrative contracts for clandestine influence operations.
These people have a very specific skill set, and when it can be used for a lucrative gain, they get excited.
They love it.
It's good.
They love it. They love it.
I mean, the whole thing is pretty absurd with, there's so many layers to this, but you skipped a part here where I think is
I skipped
poignant.
Lots of parts.
Yeah, I skipped lots of parts.
There's a
part
lot
in here
there, but if you got one, you can read it.
Yeah, there's a quote. There's people going back and forth. David Agronovich and Christopher Miller, then Assistant Director for Special Operations Low Intensity Conflict, which oversees influence operations policy, warning him that if Facebook could sniff them out, so could U.S. adversaries. Several people familiar with the conversation said, quote, his point, one person said, was, guys, you got caught. That's a problem. Which is funny because it's so obvious at this point. You know, I'm going back to your little, these guys getting giddy. I mean, basically it was like, hey, we can start paying TikTok influencers to do our thing. Yeah, sweet.
They weren't even experts. They weren't even like that's the crazy part about this is what this explains is that it wasn't just the CIA. It wasn't just the intelligence professionals. These were non-military, non-trained contractors. These were businesses who got contracts from the government to post misinformation under this official military funding to win the information war online. And going back to what you mentioned, you said, the funny part where the guy's like, guys, you got caught. Further down, the accounts were easily detected by Facebook, which since Russia's campaign to interfere in the 2016 presidential election has enhanced its ability to identify mock personas and sites. In some cases, the company had removed profiles which appeared to be associated with the military that promoted information deemed by fact checkers to be false, said a person familiar with the matter. Now, remember with the Smith,
so messy.
It's so messy. So you remember when all those they still do it, but remember when we would read fact checks and they would specifically fact check social media posts?
Yeah.
They weren't fact checking facts. They weren't fact checking news. They weren't fact checking anything important. They would take individuals' Facebook posts and debunk them one by one, and then try to apply that across the board of whatever, a conspiracy theory or a Wuhan Institute of Virology theory or whatever, a COVID theory, a vaccine thing. They would take individual posts and fact check them, which is exactly sort of the modern version of the Smith-Month Act, which is, you don't necessarily get to put the false information on the news, but you can like post it and then somebody can fact check it. And then that's the way you get the propaganda out. And that's exactly what we saw. When we saw it happening, we even said on this show, what in the world are fact checkers doing? Fact checking individual Facebook posts from weird individuals. It made no sense. It was highly suspicious. Well, whoop-de-doo, folks. Turns out we were right again. They were military disinformation contractors that got fact-checked in order to
even
spread
the social media posts themselves were people getting paid by the military-industrial complex to make these posts so that they can be debunked.
Exactly. They were fake so they could be debunked. It is exactly what we described when we read it.
This is interesting, too. It says here, in response to White House concerns, Call ordered a review of Military Information Support Operations, or MISO, the Pentagon's moniker for psychological operations. Now, Basil, Flippy, the robot arm, was created by who? What's the name of the company?
Good old MISO Robotics.
Spelled the same, too. MISO.
Yeah, all caps.
Yeah, all caps. Just a coincidence, I'm sure.
Coincidentally, Flippy is made by the company of the same name as the Pentagon's moniker for PsyOps. Huh. Weird.
Yeah,
am I in a simulation? Am I playing like a video game where I like create the reality as I blab on a podcast, or am I just paying attention to details?
Well, the thing is, I think reality is way more entertaining than all of the science fiction out there. It's just people don't pay attention. They'd rather be distracted with with all the craziness. But yeah,
Yep.
in reality,
and
is
that's
more entertaining, I would say.
That's the value of the show. It's the value of the show for me, Gons. The value of the show for me is, yeah, do I feel like a crazy person for a while until everything comes together and makes sense? Yeah. But does it always come together and make sense? Always. 100% of the time, things come together and it makes total sense.
Yeah, and I have to point this out because I know we're going long here, but this article is just so great. Remember, this is WAPO, Washington Post.
This is Washington Post.
Washington Post published this couple sentences. Psychological operations to promote U.S. narratives overseas are nothing new in the military. Did you already read this? I don't think you read this yet. But the popularity of Western social media across the globe has led to an expansion of tactics, including the use of artificial personas and images, sometimes called deepfakes.
Dun, dun, dun.
They've already used deepfakes.
Oh, the U.S. military and intelligence agencies and Central Command and the Pentagon are using deepfakes to spread misinformation. Imagine that. This would get WAPO kicked off of YouTube if they posted it 2 months ago, even maybe more, maybe 6 months. The logic, this is what you're reading here. The logic is that views. Oh, don't worry. Give us the logic. The logic is that views expressed by what appears to be, say, an Afghan woman or an Iranian student might be more persuasive than if they were openly pushed by the U.S. government. No kidding. It's really funny because
it's crazy.
There's so much of this article that is like, duh, what a crazy thing to put in your article.
For us.
But it truly is a PsyOps are real and our government does it to us all the time 101 course being published by Washington Post.
And we used to call it, we often reference it as like a covert operations. A lot of it during the Cold War and in Vietnam, you got a lot of covert operations. But it says here the majority of the military's influence operations are overt, promoting U.S. policies in the Middle East, Asia, and elsewhere under its own name, officials said. Oh, so that's okay.
Yeah.
The majority is overt. So, well, just having a little sprinkle of some fake influencers and social media is, what's so bad about that? The enemy's doing it. Well, so
we do deep fakes. We spread lies. We do that. But we also have our official military Twitter account, and then we also put the truth on there. So it's all fine.
And it always comes back to money. A key issue for senior policymakers now is determining whether the military's execution of clandestine influence operations is delivering results. Quote, is the juice worth the squeeze? Mm-hmm. Does our approach really have the potential for the return on investment we had hoped? Or is it just causing more challenges? One person familiar with the debate said.
Yeah, is it causing more challenges? Oh, you mean the challenges where nobody can trust anything that they see or hear on the internet or read on social media? Is it too much of a challenge that we have completely demolished the very idea of truth, which is a justification for our big brother government to come in and police individuals' social media accounts for wrongthink and to kick people out of the public square for doing the exact thing, not even doing the exact thing, but you blame regular citizens for doing the same thing that the government does on a daily basis. And most of the time, the citizens end up being right. This episode of this show, we have shown, first of all, you say the word PSYOP anywhere, so people call you a conspiracy theorist and a Looney Tune. And here it is, Washington Post, in their very Washington Posty way, admitting PSYOPs, of course, are real, and PSYOPs happen every day on every social media platform, paid for and perpetrated by the government. Boom. That's one thing that you're called a crazy person. Our COVID section, talking about the Eco Health Alliance with CIA involvement and psychological operations of controlled opposition. Boom. That would have gotten you kicked off of YouTube or anywhere, even just months ago. And there it is, right in front of our faces. Been on this show the whole time, folks. So, It's a weird time, Gons. We have been a bit ahead of the curve for many years now, and now the curve is catching up to us. I'm a little afraid of what the future is going to start looking like if we keep being right about all these things. And it's only possible because of the support of our producers. We could not pay this much attention and give this kind of insight years before it pops up in the Washington Post if it weren't for our producers. And that's not just the ones that support us financially, but also with their time and their talent.